He stood in the back, watching the crowd gather, feeling the weight of the moment. The sun hung low, casting a warm golden hue over the white canopy set up in the middle of the open field. It was a quaint town, small enough that everyone seemed to know everyone else. There was a soft murmur of excitement in the air, laughter and greetings flying from one familiar face to another, but he felt separate from it all, a ghost among the living. Daniel shifted uneasily on his feet, half-heartedly adjusting the collar of the button-up shirt he had worn. The shirt was something he reserved for special occasions, a family event, a wedding, or a day like today. It had been a while since he had attended something so public. He was no longer the confident young man he used to be, but rather a distant version of himself, submerged in doubt and loneliness. As he scanned the crowd, he spotted familiar faces. His childhood friends, the neighbors he grew up with, even his high school teacher, Mrs. Thompson. They all looked animated, their glossy smiles illuminated by the sun. Daniel let his gaze wander, drifting to the small makeshift stage at the front. That's where the speeches would happen, where the town would be reminded of what was important. His heart raced. He hadn't always felt this way. Once, long ago, he had been sure of his place in this community. But life had twisted those emotions, pulling him into a shadow of his former self. After losing his job last year, he felt like he'd lost a part of his identity. Crippling bills and sleepless nights created a fog in his mind. He was a mere observer in his own life. The event was a fundraiser to complete the renovations for the historic community center. Daniel had spent countless hours there as a kid, learning about art, music, and life. Memories flooded back, hanging out with friends, laughing over silly pranks, and dreaming about the future. But today, standing in the back, he felt like he didn't belong. Suddenly, he heard a burst of laughter cut through the air. His heart sank even lower as he noticed it was the group he once belonged to. They were gathered, reminiscing stories, reliving old memories. Daniel could almost hear their voices in his head, filled with warmth and camaraderie. Yet now he felt like a wallflower, just a shadow lurking in the periphery. A gentle hand rested on his shoulder, pulling him back to reality. It was Lucy, the bubbly blonde from his high school days. "Daniel," she exclaimed, her eyes twinkling with joy. There was an unexpected spark of warmth in her greeting, and for a brief moment he felt a flicker of hope. "Yeah, I figured I'd check it out," he replied, managing a weak smile. "Good, we've missed you." She urged, but before he could respond, she turned back to the group. The laughter resumed, and Daniel tightened his grip on himself, feeling the walls closing in, but he didn't follow her. Instead, he drifted toward the refreshments, pouring himself a cup of lukewarm coffee. It was bitter and strong, unlike the joyful conversations swirling around him. He felt isolated, as if he were behind glass, watching an animated world continue without him. But then he heard them announcing the first speaker of the day, and his mind unexpectedly snapped back into focus. The mayor stepped onto the stage, clearing his throat as he began his speech, and Daniel realized that a moment he had anticipated for years was finally unfolding. The mayor spoke to the crowd about the importance of community and how far they had all come together. Daniel remembered the countless memories he had cherished in that center. It was a safe haven that had shaped his childhood. The crowd erupted in applause, but as the mayor introduced the next person to speak, Daniel felt something strange tugging at him. He turned slightly, following the mayor's gaze to the side of the building behind him. There, high on the freshly painted wall, he saw the name Daniel Collins etched in bold letters. His breath hitched, and for a moment the world around him stopped. That was his name. His heart raced as he fought to comprehend the weight of it all. It dawned on him that wasn't just a name on a wall, it was a legacy. A testament to the countless hours he had poured into the community center, back when he still believed he could make a difference. The crowd turned to stare at the name as the mayor continued, highlighting Daniel's contributions over the years. The crowd erupted into applause again, and Daniel felt warmth wash over him, an emotion long buried. He looked again at the name, and suddenly a wave of memories crashed over him. Workshops he had led, kids he had mentored, and connections he had forged through shared passions. The flames of belonging flickered in his heart, but just as quickly, shadows crept back in the fear, the doubts, the constant reminder of being a failure. He fought against them, realizing he was still there, standing in the back, watching. As if sensing his conflict, Lucy sidled up to him again, glancing up at the building. She asked, awe evident in her voice. Daniel merely nodded, too overwhelmed to articulate his feelings. His throat tightened as he struggled to respond. He had always enjoyed helping out, but he hadn't considered his role worthy of recognition. Guilt wrapped around his heart like a chain. What did he really deserve? Lucy continued, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "You're such an important part of this community, Daniel." As she spoke, he felt something inside shift. The walls that confined him began to crack, tiny fissures letting the light shine through. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel quite so alone. At that moment, something remarkable happened. The next speaker came up, someone who had benefited directly from Daniel's work. A young woman, she stood confidently, her voice clear and strong as she shared her story of how Daniel had inspired her to pursue her dreams. She spoke with gratitude, mentioning how he had taken the time to guide her when she felt lost, reminding her she had a place here. The audience smiled collectively, and her words wrapped around him like a warm hug. As she finished and the crowd erupted into applause once more, Daniel felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. This was what he had missed: a sense of connection, purpose, and belonging. He had poured his heart into this community, believing it would come back to life in some way, but he hadn't expected it to turn into this. Lucy glanced at him, sensing the shift in his demeanor. He took a deep breath, allowing himself to feel the tidal wave of gratitude. I didn't realize how much I meant to this place," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Forgotten you never, you're a part of all of us," she said. Those words hung in the air like a spell, breaking down the last of his doubts. He was more than just a figure in the shadows. He was woven into the very fabric of this community. It dawned on him he could step forward. Maybe he didn't have to stay silent and removed anymore. He could reclaim his voice. "I think I need to speak," he said, surprising even himself. Lucy's eyes widened in excitement. "Really?" "Yes." Encouraged by her enthusiasm, he found himself moving closer to the stage. His heart raced as he felt the weight of everyone's eyes upon him. The mayor gestured toward him, welcoming him to the microphone. Daniel's palms were sweaty, but as he stepped up, he glanced at his name on the wall behind him. "This is for them," he thought. He took a deep breath and spoke, feeling the warmth of the crowd wrap around him like a cozy blanket that pushed away the coldness creeping in. "I didn't expect to be here today," he began, his voice shaky. The crowd quieted, listening. "For a long time I felt lost, like I didn't belong anymore, but seeing all your smiles, hearing your laughter." As he spoke, the words flowed, carrying the weight of his past, his struggles, and more importantly, the love he still held for this community. "Together, we've built something beautiful, and I want to be part of it again." Cheers erupted from the crowd, and he felt something inside him shift permanently. It was as if a dam had burst open, releasing years of fear and uncertainty. He could see the support in their faces, each one a beacon of light reminding him that he never had to stand alone. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt alive. Standing there under the sunlight with his name on the building, he realized he wasn't just an observer anymore. He was home. He stood in the back of the crowd, heart pounding, feeling a surge of confusion mixed with a strange excitement. The cheers echoed like distant thunder, the sun radiating warmth on the faces of families gathered around the town square. They were all looking toward the freshly painted building, their eyes shining with pride. But Daniel, he felt frozen in place, his breath caught in his throat as he fought to understand what was happening. Underneath, a group of children laughed as they tossed bright-colored balloons into the air, filling the space with joy. But Daniel's gaze was fixed on something far more profound. A rush of memories flooded him, years of his life spent in that very place. The vibrant art classes, the dances that never ended, the sweaty halls filled with laughter. Yet in that moment he felt bittersweet. How could something so beautiful make him feel so small? His heart tightened as he thought about the years that had slipped past, years lost in silence and self-doubt. The speeches began, voices rising and falling like waves crashing against the shore. Each speaker praised the efforts of the community, each mention of his name causing an uncomfortable flush to rise to his cheeks. Cheers erupted with every utterance, yet Daniel remained rooted to the spot, disconnected from the wave of gratitude that crashed around him. His thoughts spiraled as he recalled how difficult his life had become. Just a year ago, he was full of hope and dreams, but life had a way of bringing shadows, didn't it? The job he loved faded away, his self-worth dragged down by constant worry and the pressure of mounting bills. Friends had drifted, and he lost sight of who he even was anymore. Standing there, surrounded by those who had once been part of his everyday life, he felt more like a memory than a person. Lucy, an old friend from school, sprang into his view, her laughter ringing like a beautiful melody. She was talking excitedly with a group of kids, their wide-eyed wonder matching the joy she exuded. She noticed him lingering in the back, her expression shifting from joy to concern. She wandered over, her face lighting up in recognition. "Daniel," she exclaimed, her face glowing with warmth. "Yeah, just thought I'd see what it was all about," he replied, uncertainty flickering in his voice. "Come join us," she said, waving her hand toward the group. He wanted to, he really did, but the thought of stepping forward felt like climbing a mountain. Could he really reinsert himself into a world where he felt like a ghost? "Maybe later," he muttered, and her smile faltered for just a moment before she nodded, heading back to the crowd. Moments slipped by like sand through his fingers, and Daniel's anxieties began to creep back in, coiling around his heart. It was hard to shake the feeling of being an outsider, of standing on the sidelines of a life that was no longer his. Then a familiar voice pierced through the noise. Mr. Jenkins, his old mentor and a pillar of the community, had taken to the stage. He bellowed, his voice deep and resonant. The crowd fell silent, their faces turning toward him. Daniel's heart raced. He knew what was coming, yet he couldn't look away. Mr. Jenkins continued. The applause erupted like fireworks, filling the air with thunderous appreciation, yet all Daniel felt was a hollow sense of disbelief. Waves of emotion crashed over him, but he was paralyzed, grappling with a tide of guilt and shame. Why were they celebrating him? What had he done to deserve such honor? In his mind, he was still that guy hunched over on a couch, fighting despair, wallowing in doubt. With shaky hands, he gripped his phone, scrolling through old messages, finding photos from happier times. Memories of summer camps, laughter, and endless possibilities flashed across the screen. Then, like ice water splashing over his head, he saw a message from Lucy just a few months earlier. She had reached out, offering support, encouragement, reminding him of his worth. Tears stung his eyes as he remembered. They were his lifeline, a connection that had been waiting for him to hold on. But instead, he pushed it all away, convinced he didn't belong anymore. As Mr. Jenkins continued, detailing the building's history, telling stories of past triumphs, Daniel felt a flicker deep inside. I used to be that person, he thought. A memory surfaced, a moment of triumph, standing in front of a group of kids, encouraging them to have faith in their dreams. He had forgotten who he was, the passion that used to drive him. Enough is enough, he whispered to himself, the words barely escaping his lips but carrying a weight that felt monumental. A voice inside him pushed harder. In that instant, Daniel's gaze drifted back up to his name on the building. It wasn't just a marker of who he had been. It was a declaration of what still lived inside him. He felt the energy of the crowd pumping around him like a heartbeat, and suddenly he didn't want to hide. He wanted to step out of the shadows. Gripping the hem of his shirt, he took a breath and made his way closer to the stage, his pulse thumping in his ears. Each step felt like a revelation. With every stride, he began shedding the weight of his insecurities. The excitement bubbling up around him felt electric, reminding him of the joy he once had, the joy he wanted back. Finally, he reached the front of the gathering. The crowd's noise softened, curiosity shimmering in the air. Mr. Jenkins spotted him and motioned him forward. Daniel, all eyes fell on him. Time slowed as he climbed the steps to the stage, each heartbeat reverberating like a drum, echoing the uncertainty against the rhythm of his resolve. "Hello, everyone," Daniel's voice trembled but rang clear as he took a deep breath. Laughter erupted, breaking the tension, and he smiled, the warmth of connection flooding back. He felt his old self emerging like a butterfly from its cocoon. "I want to say thank you to each of you. I've spent too long thinking I didn't belong here, but this place, it means everything to me." As he spoke, he felt the past slowly integrate with the present. This center was my home. It was where I learned to dream. It was where I found community and love. The crowd erupted in applause, and he saw smiles everywhere. Each face reflected a past shared, a bond rekindled, forgiveness in the air. He could almost hear the laughter and joy from the days that had flown away, and for the first time in far too long, he felt a warmth begin to grow within. "Let's make this place a home for all again," Daniel declared, feeling a spark ignite. The applause grew, echoing like a tidal wave of encouragement. For the first time, Daniel allowed himself to believe, not just for the moment, but for the future that lay ahead. With his heart now at the forefront, he stepped down from the stage, feeling like a part of the fabric of the community again. Lucy rushed to his side, her smile radiant. "Thank you," he said, feeling more alive than he had in years. They stood together, watching the laughter of children as they played, the connection blossoming around them like flowers breaking through the earth. Daniel's heart swelled with hope, a sense of belonging vividly reminding him that life was very much alive. As he gazed up once more at the building glistening in the sun, his name etched proudly into its walls, he realized he had come full circle. Losing himself had led him back to where he truly belonged. At that moment, he embraced anew the vibrant possibilities ahead. Each heartbeat reminded him today he was home. He stood in the back of the crowd, an unseen ghost amidst the bustling chatter, watching the unveiling of the new community center with a heart heavy with doubt. The air was thick with excitement, children laughing and balloons floating, their colors bright against the deep blue sky. Yet Daniel felt anchored to the ground, trapped in a moment he couldn't quite comprehend. As the mayor stepped up to the podium, the crowd grew silent, anticipation hanging like the scent of freshly cut grass. Applause erupted, each clap a reminder of Daniel's distance from the world around him. He shifted nervously, hands jammed in his pockets, anxiety swirling within him. Suddenly, a large banner unfurled behind the stage, catching his eye. At that moment, time seemed to stand still. His name felt surreal, like a scene from a dream he couldn't quite wake up from. Those words echoed through the noise, but he couldn't hear the cheers or see the smiles. Instead, Daniel felt the weight of judgment, his own judgment. Who was he to be honored here? Memories washed over him like a tide, dreams once bright, laughter shared with friends, but now shadows loomed larger than life. Loss, regret, and uncertainty clung to him like a suffocating fog. He'd been living in the shadows of his former self for too long. Just a year ago, he held a steady job, a bright future ahead. But life had a way of snatching hope like a thief in the night. A sudden layoff, mounting bills, and the spiraling grip of depression built invisible walls around him. Friends tried to reach out, but he turned away, convinced no one wanted to hear his story anymore. The crowd erupted again, shattering his thoughts, but Daniel felt nothing. He looked at the people standing in celebration faces he used to know so well. There was Lucy, his childhood friend, laughing with her children. Their laughter was a shared memory, a reminder of the bond they once had. As he watched her, a longing filled him, longing for connection, for acceptance, but he stayed rooted in place, a spectator in his own life. Lucy's voice cut through the noise, reaching him like a lighthouse on a foggy night. She waved, a beacon of light in the sea of faces. "Yeah, I thought I'd drop by," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper, uncertainty coloring his words. "Come." Her smile was infectious, but he hesitated, feeling the weight of his own insecurities. "I'll be fine back here," he stammered, shuffling his feet. Lucy's grin faltered, her eyes searching his, but then she returned to her friends, laughter fading into the background. Daniel felt time slip away, moments stretching into eternity. The speeches continued, laughter bubbled over, but he remained, a stone in a stream of flowing water. As the mayor spoke about the history of the community center, the memories danced through Daniel's mind, bittersweet and painful. It was a place filled with creativity, a safe haven where dreams were nurtured. But as his memories rushed in, so did the reminders of his failures. He could see the faces of children he used to mentor, bright eyes reflecting hope, and he sensed the collective disappointment he had caused by retreating into himself. "Today we honor those who have made this possible," the mayor continued, pausing for effect. The crowd erupted into applause, but for Daniel it felt like a storm of confusion. How could they honor him? He had lost his way. He stood there, invisible and exposed, nearly drowning in the intensity of their admiration. His heart raced as he felt the crowd's energy shift, excitement swirling around him like a whirlwind. Mr. Jenkins, the longtime community leader, stepped onto the stage, his presence commanding. He could feel Mr. Jenkins' eyes scanning the crowd, finally landing on Daniel, who stood like a statue in the backdrop. Mr. Jenkins called out, directing the crowd's attention. A wave of panic washed over him. He hadn't prepared for this. His heart slammed against his ribs as he instinctively took a step back, but it felt like the ground beneath him pulled him forward, forcing him to face his fears. Mr. Jenkins urged, his voice booming with enthusiasm. Daniel hesitated, the weight of the moment anchoring him down, but the crowd was cheering, the voices calling his name, urging him to move. Could he do it? Could he step into the light of his own accomplishments? Taking a deep breath, he pushed through the throng of people, feeling every set of eyes upon him. As he climbed the steps to the stage, Daniel's heart was thunderous, the power of the moment crashing over him like waves against a rocky shore. He stood at the podium, a sea of faces before him, hearts beating in unison. Gathering his thoughts, Daniel finally spoke. "Thank you, The crowd was silent, hanging on his words like lifelines. "This center means a lot to me," he continued. "It was a place of laughter, of dreams, and of belonging. I spent years here, growing, learning, and believing in possibilities." His voice shook slightly, but he pressed on. "I forgot the joy that came from being part of something bigger," I thought. He could see nods of understanding ripple through the crowd, their expressions shifting from joy to empathy. It was a raw, vulnerable moment laid bare before them. "But seeing all of you today, feeling your support, it reminds me I'm not alone." As Daniel spoke, the chains of his doubts started to break piece by piece. Memories unfolded in his mind like a blooming flower, each moment filled with laughter and love. He could see the community, the families who shared sorrows and joys, standing strong together. "I stand here because of you, because of the love we shared." Daniel's voice grew stronger, each word a heartbeat. "Let's make this center a home again." The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of sound that crashed over him like a tidal wave of encouragement. A sense of belonging washed through his veins, igniting the fire within that had dimmed for so long. He looked out over the sea of faces, a kaleidoscope of joy and support. He exclaimed, feeling alive in a way he hadn't in years. Daniel stepped down, his spirit soaring, every piece of doubt replaced by connection. As he exited the stage, Lucy rushed to his side, her eyes glittering with pride. "That was incredible." Daniel felt a warmth bloom in his chest, a bond rekindled. "Thank you for being here," he whispered, that flicker of hope igniting into a flame. The crowd continued to celebrate, laughter ringing in the air like music. People approached him, sharing stories, reconnecting in a way that felt both familiar and new. Each conversation stoked the fire of his spirit, each smile a reminder that he was back in the fold. As the day unfolded, Daniel realized the building wasn't merely a center, it was a symbol of resilience, of community, and of dreams reborn. He stared up at the sign one more time, feeling the warmth of gratitude flooding through him. He wasn't just a name, he was part of a legacy worth celebrating. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting gorgeous hues across the horizon, illuminating the faces around him. In that moment, Daniel understood. Standing in the back was no longer who he was. He belonged here in the light, ready to embrace the future, ready to dream again. He stood in the back, a solitary figure lost in the crowd, heart racing as the excitement pulsed all around him. The turf was alive with children's laughter, the air thick with the sweet scent of popcorn and cotton candy. Today was the big unveiling of the new community center, a moment that everyone in town had been waiting for. Yet, despite the joy radiating from the crowd, Daniel felt like an outsider in his own skin. The mayor was up on the stage, waving his arms like a conductor, rallying cheers from the townsfolk. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, his voice reverberating against the backdrop of a bright blue sky. Daniel shifted his weight from one foot to the other, fighting back a swell of memories that churned in his stomach. As the mayor continued speaking about renovations and improvements, Daniel's gaze drifted to the large canvas draped over the front wall of the newly refurbished center. The anticipation in the air was palpable, the crowd buzzing with excitement, children scampering around, holding balloons tied to their wrists. The mayor draped his arm dramatically toward the canvas. Everyone held their breath, and in that moment time felt like it stretched infinitely. Daniel's heart thudded in his chest, a mixture of dread and curiosity swirling together. With a flourish, the mayor pulled the cloth away, revealing the striking letters beneath. Silence fell over the crowd like a blanket, and Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His mind spun as he stood there, the name echoing in his ears. He thought, disbelief tightening around his chest. His name, glowing as if it were carved directly into the fabric of the sky, felt as if the whole world paused, drawing every eye to him, a spotlight shining directly on his face. A wave of confusion and unworthiness crashed over him. The question gnawed at him, pulling him deeper into the shadows of his mind. Memories flooded back, days filled with hope, laughter shared with friends, the warmth that had once enveloped him like a familiar hug. But all that warmth had turned to ice in recent years, making him feel like a stranger clinging to the past. Daniel had once been vibrant, a young man bursting with dreams and aspirations, but then life happened, unforeseen challenges snatched his job, leaving him with nothing but unanswered questions. Isolation crept in like a thief in the night, stealing his confidence, whispering lies that he might never restore his sense of purpose. As the crowd erupted in cheers and applause, Daniel felt like he was fading away, blending into the backdrop. People turned to congratulate him, old friends and new faces swept around him in a tide of celebration. But he just stood there, feet rooted to the ground, heart racing with confusion. In the midst of the chaos, a familiar voice called out, "Daniel." It was Lucy, his childhood friend, her eyes sparkling like they did back in their carefree days. "Hey Lucy," he replied, forcing a smile, his heart sinking lower. "You're here, you have to come forward," she insisted, tugging at his sleeve. "Maybe later," he mumbled, his mind racing with self-doubt. Lucy's excitement dimmed just a fraction, but she didn't give up. "You've done so much for this community." She glanced over her shoulder at the stage, then back at him, her concern evident. His voice barely escaped his lips, heavy with shame. But as she smiled at him, he thought about the countless times he had shared laughter and joy in that very community center. It had been a refuge, a sanctuary that had shaped who he once was. Yet here he stood, feeling like a specter of his former self, barely staying afloat in the tides of uncertainty. The mayor continued to speak, extolling Daniel's contributions, and as each word filled the air, Daniel felt a tightening in his throat. The mayor's voice seemed to echo through him, sparking images of laughter, dancing, the vibrant energy he once radiated. Shadows whispered louder in his mind, "You're not that person anymore." The celebration danced madly around him, but for Daniel, time stood still, pushing him back into solitude. He glanced again at the building, at the name emblazoned in bold letters. His heart twisted. Was this a cruel joke? Did they truly think he had made such a difference? But as the speeches went on, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of something else lurking beneath the dread, something like a spark of hope. If they saw him like this, did that mean he was still capable of being part of it? The applause rose again, and the warmth of their cheers brushed across him, bit by bit melting away the ice that encased him. "Together, we can make the community stronger," the mayor concluded, clapping Daniel on the back. The crowd erupted once more, clapping, a wave of appreciation surging through the crowd. He felt the warmth of their admiration warming his insides like the sun breaking through the clouds after a storm. But he also felt the shadows creeping back, clinging to him like a weight he couldn't shake off. He thought, and just like that, everything around him, the laughter, the music, the cheers felt like a distant echo, a dream slipping through his fingers. He was suffocating in the expectations he placed upon himself. This wasn't just a celebration, it was a testament to everything he felt he had lost. But Lucy didn't give up on him. She saw the conflict in his eyes and placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. "You can't let this moment pass you by, Daniel. Look how many lives you've touched." Her words were like sunlight breaking through the clouds, forcing him to reconsider, he thought. Suddenly, the melancholic air shifted into something more tangible. The moment felt electric, as if the crowd instinctively recognized what he was grappling with. Daniel took a deep breath, feeling the energy of the people around him, their support radiating like warmth, igniting the flicker of hope inside him. He stepped forward just a few inches, one timid step that felt monumental. What he didn't know was how important that footstep would be. He shouted, surprising himself with his own voice. The crowd quieted for just a moment, hanging on his words, a mix of surprise and hope glimmering in their eyes. "You all are here because of a love for this community. The laughter, the joys, the sorrows we've shared, it's what brought us together," he continued, feeling each word flow more easily. "I may have lost my way, but today, standing here, I realize." No sound filled the air as he paused, feeling the weight of every eye locked on him. Fear danced in his chest, but I had never felt so connected as the energy of the crowd surged toward him. reminding him of the bonds he thought he had broken. He exclaimed, his voice rising in conviction, "I want to help shape the future for our children. Let's fill this center with laughter, creativity, and possibility again. Let us dream together, because individually we may falter, but together." In that moment, the crowd exploded with cheers, uproarious applause echoing through the open space. Daniel felt exhilarated, the shadows receding as he stepped deeper into the light. Lucy beamed, grabbing his hand and raising it high like a champion. As people began to surround him, welcoming him back into the fold, he could feel a renewed sense of purpose igniting inside him. Every handshake and hug represented a bridge back to the community he thought he had lost forever. Over the coming weeks, Daniel re-engaged with the community in ways he had never imagined possible. Organizing workshops, hosting events, and rekindling relationships became a source of joy and renewal for him. The community center was vibrant again, transformed into a hub of laughter, art, and education. With each passing day, Daniel walked into the building and into his new life embracing the art of belonging. Restoration was not just about the walls painted bright, it was about nurturing the heart of a community, remembering the love that woven all their lives together. In the evenings, when he sat on the steps of the center watching the lights shimmer against the backdrop of stars, he reflected on how he transformed from simply an observer to an active participant in a world that was suddenly bursting with possibilities. Looking up at the letters that glowed in the twilight, he smiled, feeling the name mean something entirely new. Daniel Thompson Community Center was not about a single person. It was a promise of connection, heart, and community forged within the bonds of shared struggles and triumphs. And now, Daniel didn't just stand in the back. He stood proudly in the spotlight, surrounded by the people he loved, restored in spirit, alive with purpose, ready to dream again. He stood in the back, his heart pounding in rhythm with the buzz of celebration around him. Today was not just any day, it was the grand unveiling of the new community center. The air crackled with excitement, a colorful tapestry woven from laughter, the sound of children running, and the tantalizing aroma of food cooking nearby. Yet despite this joyful atmosphere, Daniel felt like a ghost watching life unfold from behind glass. The mayor's voice boomed over the crowd, calling everyone's attention. He gestured grandly toward the large curtain draped over the front of the new building. Daniel swallowed hard, his stomach twisted in knots. What name could possibly go on a building? Names represented legacies, contributions, and commitments. But to him, they also represented expectations, and he wasn't sure he could meet any of them. As the mayor's words echoed, Daniel's mind spiraled back to a time when he had shared in that laughter, when he had been a vibrant part of the community. The glory days of friendship, mentorship, and creativity felt like a lifetime ago, overshadowed by shadows of self-doubt and regret. For the past year, he had felt invisible, slipping through life like sand running through fingers. The mayor pulled the curtain away, revealing the building underneath. Daniel froze. Time seemed to freeze as the crowd erupted around him in cheers, but he wasn't listening to the applause, he was staring at the sign. It didn't make sense. A name that was not his, yet he had spent countless hours over the years building up this very place. Memories flooded back, organizing events, creating programs for kids, fostering community spirit. This center had once been a sanctuary, but now it felt like a reminder of everything he believed he had lost. He fought against the rush of emotions. He took a shaky breath, willing himself to focus. He could almost hear the laughter of children echoing in his mind, all the faces that had once filled the center with joy. A familiar voice broke through his reverie. It was Lucy, an old friend. Her sunny smile had always had a way of lighting up the room. "Maybe later," he mumbled, his gaze still fixed on the building. She tilted her head, concern etched on her face. Daniel shrugged, feeling the heaviness of her words. "But it is." Her voice held an urgency that made him look into her eyes. There was sincerity there, but underneath it all was a shadow of doubt, his own self-doubt. He blurted out. Lucy frowned, hurt flickering across her features. "It doesn't matter what the sign says, Daniel. This place is alive because of you." But as she spoke, he felt walls rising higher around him. "Spirit, warmth," the mayor continued, oblivious to the emotional storm brewing in the back. "Today wouldn't be possible without the combined efforts of many individuals across this community," he proclaimed, his tone soaring. Daniel felt the attention shift to him, the spotlight burning down. Awkwardly, he lifted a hand, barely able to muster a smile. The cheers washed over him, but it felt like a tidal wave of emptiness crashing him down. In that moment, he became lost in a whirlwind of impossible expectations. Had he really raised that money? Felt like a lifetime ago, another person's story. The last year had drained his spirit. Without a job, without purpose, he had become a stranger to himself. He thought bitterly. Despite Lucy's encouraging words, Daniel felt himself slipping further away from the cheerful atmosphere. The center of the building that had once meant so much to him sat there like a monument to a life he had lost. As the crowd erupted in applause again, Lucy squeezed his arm. "Come on, Daniel," he whispered. All he felt was a chasm opening between him and the joy of the crowd. You're part of us." She stopped, taking a step closer. "You think your name's not on that sign?" But it felt like the shadows of his doubts crept closer, wrapping around him like a suffocating fog. He thought, the weight of regret pressing heavily on his chest. The mayor stepped back from the podium, smiling as he gestured for Daniel to join him. The call was clear, a point of no return. Daniel felt heat rising to his cheeks. Did he dare? With a trembling heart, he stepped forward, each stride feeling like an eternity. The crowd opened up before him, watching with expectant eyes, and the weight of their anticipation struck him like an avalanche. "Hey everyone," he started, his voice shaky but resolute. The cheers overtook him again, wrapping him up in warmth. He stood under the spotlight, feeling like a shipwrecked sailor suddenly spotted in the vast ocean. "I didn't expect this," he continued, pushing past the fears that threatened to spiral out of control. The crowd swelled with encouragement, as if his words had sparked a flame. "I'll be honest, I've been lost." He glanced back at Lucy, and their eyes locked. She nodded in understanding. "But this center taught me something important. It's not just about individual names or signs, it's about all of us coming together, creating something beautiful." He took a deep breath, the relief washing over him like a cool breeze. "I realize now that I can't disappear from it all." Daniel saw the people in the crowd, the families, the friends, the kids whose smiles held endless promise, and a renewed sense of purpose flooded him. That spark began to grow, igniting the memories of laughter and joy that had appeared faded and distant. "I want to be back," he declared, surprise blooming inside him at his own words. Cheers erupted again, this time louder, rising like musical notes into the sky. The energy swelled, lifting him higher than he'd thought possible. As he stepped down from the podium, an overwhelming sense of relief washed over him. It was as if a dam had broken. All the doubts that had clouded his mind began to dissolve into something brighter. Lucy said with a proud grin, "You're back, I feel it," he replied, the warmth of belonging sparking in his chest. Over the weeks that followed, Daniel immersed himself in the community center like it was a lifeboat he'd been searching for all along. He reached out to children, teaching art classes, visiting local schools, and organizing events that brought families together. Each smile he encountered filled in the cracks that had widened over the years. A warmth washed over him with every effort, a reminder of how intertwined they all were. He forged connections with the very people who had sought him out during his darkest days. Their joy became his joy, bloomed like flowers throughout the garden of community he had longed to cultivate. Standing in the center one evening, laughter echoed around him, bringing feelings he thought he had lost forever. The chatter of kids created a lullaby, a peaceful hum that wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. Lucy called, waving from across the room. He turned to find her surrounded by a group of children, their eyes alight with creativity and excitement. There was a sparkle of familiarity in her smile, an invitation to reconnect. One child exclaimed, holding up a colorful painting that shimmered with life. "Wow," he said, kneeling down to admire their work. In that moment, he felt a thrill of joy rush through him. This was why he had returned, to be a part of his community, to nurture creativity and spark inspiration. As he walked around, mingling with the families, the realization struck him. He had followed the path back to himself, and it was stunningly beautiful. Months passed, and the energy in the center only grew stronger. The community buzzed with life, laughter ringing out across the center's halls. Every workshop he led filled him with a sense of pride, a sense of purpose that nagged at him when he had left his old life behind. As Daniel sat on the steps one evening watching the sun sink behind the horizon, he felt renewed. The center hummed with the voices of children, the echoes of their dreams weaving through the air like a potent spell. But in this new chapter, the name on the building didn't just mean recognition for him, it symbolized belonging. Daniel Thompson Community Center became a rallying cry, an assurance that he was part of something larger than himself. Even with all his struggles, he found his place here among the laughter and the art, the projects and life stories woven into the walls. He had stepped back into the vibrant spirit he thought he had lost forever, and with it came newfound hope for a future filled with possibilities. He stood in the back no longer. Today he was an integral part of a brighter tomorrow, a life crafted through reconnecting with his community, where every smile and laugh reminded him he was never truly alone. Daniel had found his way home. He stood in the back, a shadow in the crowd, feeling both invisible and exposed. Today was supposed to be a celebration, a grand unveiling of the new community center, but all Daniel could think about was how he felt like a ghost haunting the place he once cherished. The air crackled with excitement, laughter tumbling between families and friends who hadn't seen each other in ages. Yet he felt distant, a spectator in his own life. The mayor stood on a makeshift stage, gesturing dramatically to the large curtain that covered the entrance of the building. The mayor's voice boomed through the speaker system, full of enthusiasm. "Today marks a new beginning for our community." Daniel forced himself to smile, but inside, a torrent of self-doubt swirled. He thought back to the days when he had been deeply involved in the community, organizing events, mentoring children, sparking joy among his neighbors. but that felt like a lifetime ago, a sun that had long since set, leaving him in darkness. He had lost that spark, replaced by fear and a sense of worthlessness after losing his job and retreating into isolation. 3-2, the mayor counted down, and the crowd fell silent in eager anticipation. Daniel felt his heart race as if he were standing on a precipice, looking down into an abyss of uncertainty. What would they reveal? With a flourish, the mayor pulled away the curtain and gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniel felt the breath rush out of him like a balloon losing air. His name echoed through the cheers and applause, but he still felt detached, like he was watching from a distance. No, he thought instinctively, his mind racing. He heard the crowd erupt, a wave of admiration rolling over him. The words sank in, but they felt foreign. Why would they name it after me? He didn't know how to reconcile the honor bestowed upon him with the man he felt he had become. A gentle jab at his side broke his spiral of thoughts. It was Lucy. "Daniel, this is amazing." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. He replied, the incredulity tumbling from his lips. "I haven't done anything in months." His voice dropped, a weight settling onto his chest as he scanned the crowd again. Everyone was smiling, looking at him, but all he could see were the walls he had built around himself. Lucy exclaimed, concern flickering across her face. "You poured your heart into this place." As she spoke, doubt curled around him like ivy, squeezing tighter. "But I've lost my way." The cheers rang out again, and he felt like a spotlight was burning into his skin. It felt almost surreal, as if he were watching himself from afar, haunted by the specter of who he once was. He caught sight of old friends from his past, kids he had mentored, families he had helped. Their faces gleamed with pride, yet the shadows of his absence weighed heavily. The mayor continued speaking, and Daniel felt himself drifting deeper into despair. "And we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the dedication of our very own Daniel Thompson." The applause surged like a wave crashing against the shore, but no amount of sound could drown out the storm brewing inside him. "Why am I here? I don't deserve this," he thought. Suddenly he felt a surge of warmth as Lucy squeezed his arm. "Daniel, you can't fade into the background now," but he felt like he was crumbling, suffocating under the weight of expectation. He could feel the enthusiasm radiating from those around him, but it wasn't part of him anymore. It was like trying to fit into a suit 2 sizes too small. Lucy urged, pulling him closer to the crowd. At that moment, he felt like he was being dragged into a carnival he didn't want to attend. How could he face them? He couldn't bear the thought of being celebrated for something he no longer felt he was. As the mayor called for Daniel to join him on stage, the world spun. Daniel took a deep breath. He felt lost, unsure. What if they all saw the cracks? What if they looked beneath the surface and found nothing? But as he took a tentative step forward, something deep inside whispered that maybe, just maybe, he could start anew. He climbed the steps to the stage, the cheers echoing in his ears like the roar of the ocean. As he took his place beside the mayor, the energy of the crowd enveloped him. Finally, he stood there, rooted and trembling under the spotlight, aware of the world watching him. Hey everyone," he stammered, his voice shaky but clear. The crowd erupted into applause again, and he could hardly process it. It felt surreal, an illusion of warmth that only deepened the emptiness inside. "This is incredible," he began, feeling the pressure build. "I didn't expect." Each word felt like a weight being lifted, yet a nagging fear clung to him. "This center means so much to me." The crowd hushed, leaning in, hanging on his words. "But in recent months," he continued, feeling the vulnerability wash over him, "I've lost sight of my place in this world." A wave of understanding and empathy rippled through the audience. Faces softened and some even nodded. Daniel could feel a connection forming, a bridge being rebuilt. "But the truth is," he pressed on, heart racing, "I realize now that my story isn't over. I'm standing here because you all have reminded me that my worth isn't tied to a title." A surge of acceptance washed over him, as if the shadows that had darkened his heart were retreating. The applause grew louder, an encouraging roar that filled the air like magic. Daniel took another step forward, his voice filled with newfound confidence. "Let's make this center a home for everyone. Let's breathe life into it again, inspire creativity, and foster connections." The crowd exploded with cheers, their spirits soaring. Daniel felt buoyed by their energy, a sense of belonging washing over him like a healing balm. With every clap, every shout, he began to rediscover something in himself that had long been buried beneath the weight of disappointment. As he stepped down from the stage, he grasped Lucy's hand. "I can't believe I just did that," he breathed, incredulous. She said, beaming, "You have so much to offer, Daniel." Months rolled by, and the community center became a hub of activity, color, and laughter again. Daniel dove into projects, hosted art workshops, and mentored children the way he had always dreamed of doing. Each experience reinforced his sense of purpose, reconnecting him with the very fabric of community that had shaped him. Standing among kids painting, their laughter resonating like a melody, he felt the heart of the community beat stronger than ever before. He began to thrive in the joy he had once given to others. Daniel's own healing journey mirrored the restoration of the center. Each smile he encountered, every hand he held in support through tough times, solidified his belief that they were all in this together. The sense of belonging he had yearned for so desperately was finally within his grasp. As he sat on the steps one evening, golden sunlight washing over him, he watched the children run around, bursting with laughter and creativity. He felt a surge of gratitude swell within him. The center wasn't just a building, it was a symbol of hope, a reminder of the ties that bound them all together. Revisiting the name on the building, Daniel Thompson Community Center, he felt a warmth blossom in his chest, pride flooding through him. It symbolized not only his past, but also the path forward, an invitation to write new stories and make inspiring moments happen. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and the vibrant colors of life, he recognized that these connections had breathed new life into him. Daniel didn't just stand in the back anymore. He embraced the light, ready to shape a brighter future for himself and everyone around him. No longer lost, he realized he had found himself again, in the heart of a community he loved and in the joy of lifting others along the way. Finally, he was home. He stood in the back, deep shadows settling around him as the crowd buzzed with excitement. The air was thick with anticipation, the chatter of families merging into a harmonious din, but Daniel felt like a ghost hovering at the edges of a joyous party he hadn't been invited to. Today was the grand unveiling of the new community center, a place that had once been a sanctuary for him, filled with laughter, creativity, and friendship. Yet here he was, isolated and wrestling with his insecurities. The mayor's voice cut through the crowd, deep and resonant. The announcement drew cheers and applause, but Daniel remained frozen, memories swirling in his mind like a turbulent sea. He could picture it vividly, the hum of activity, the vibrant colors of art displayed on the walls, the sound of children learning and playing, and the sense of purpose he once felt. As the mayor continued, Daniel's gaze drifted toward the stage where a large curtain veiled the entrance of the center. Just thinking about the years he had dedicated to this place made something deep inside him ache, a longing for the days when hope enveloped him like a warm blanket. But life had thrown him countless curveballs, and he had retreated into a shell of uncertainty, fear, and self-doubt. 3-2, the mayor counted down, and Daniel's heart raced, feeling something shift within him. He held his breath, expecting magic. With an extravagant gesture, the mayor flung the curtain aside, and the crowd gasped collectively. The sound echoed in Daniel's ears like thunder. His pulse quickened, felt surreal, like an out-of-body experience. The words reverberated through the cheers, yet he stood numb, grappling to understand what it all meant. He hadn't been a part of this center for months now, hiding away under layers of self-doubt. How could they possibly associate his name with the building? They must have made a mistake. He didn't belong here anymore. Next to him, Lucy, a familiar face from his past, nudged him with a joyful nudge. Daniel, look, a lump formed in his throat. Yeah, but Lucy, I haven't done anything. Not recently, she said, her voice firm but encouraging. You've given so much to this community. But even as she spoke, feelings of inadequacy washed over him, drowning out her words. How could anyone celebrate him? He had felt like a failure for far too long. The mayor continued, his voice ringing with enthusiasm. Cheering erupted again, but Daniel felt like he was caught in an undertow, pulled beneath the surface, struggling to breathe. I don't want this attention, he thought, panic settling in his chest. As the enthusiastic crowd filled with laughter and applause, Daniel's heart sank deeper. The memories of days spent mentoring children and leading workshops felt tainted by the shadow of doubt that now loomed over him. The energy around him was vibrant, but he was disconnected, like a static image on a blurred screen. Lucy called again, you need to get up there. He shook his head, retreating further into the background. I can't stand up there, not like this. But Lucy would not relent, her determination pierced through the fog clouding his mind. You can share your story, you're still part of this. At that moment, a voice inside him whispered something newfound, a flicker of hope buried beneath the weight of the past. What if he could reclaim his place? What if that name on the building was an invitation to rediscover himself? The mayor was looking directly at him now, a wave of support washing over his anxious heart. All eyes were on him, and Daniel felt as if gravity had shifted. Could he really step up? He took a deep breath, his heart hammering in his chest, but there it was, a small spark of courage igniting within him. Slowly he walked toward the stage, each step feeling monumental, as if he were retracing the path back to himself. The crowd parted, their faces encouraging, and he could hear their whispers, a chorus of support surrounding him like a protective shield. He reached the podium, unsure of what to say, but a part of him found strength in the glow of the spotlight, illuminating his fears, exposing them to the light. Hi everyone, he stammered, his voice quaking in the stillness that enveloped him. Someone shouted from the crowd, and the applause surged around him, wrapping him up like a warm embrace. With newfound resolve, he continued, I didn't expect to be here today. The crowd leaned in, engaging with his words. He could see understanding ripple through the crowd, eyes filled with empathy and recognition. But standing here, seeing all of your faces, it reminds me that life is about connection, about support. Daniel took a breath, releasing a wave of gratitude that filled the space. We all have our struggles, but together we can create something beautiful. Let's bring this community back to life. The applause crescendoed, overwhelming him with warmth, and he felt the shadows recede, replaced by like a burst of sunlight breaking through dark clouds. This wasn't just about him, it was about everyone, their shared journey. As he stepped down from the stage, he felt lighter, the weight of isolation lifting. Lucy rushed over, her eyes wide with joy. "You were incredible, see, this is you. I just spoke from the heart," he replied, breathless and exhilarated. Over the weeks that followed, the community center transformed into a vibrant hub of activity. Daniel plunged back into life there, guiding workshops, engaging with families, and lending a hand wherever he could. He reignited the spark of mentorship that had once lit up his path. Laughter echoed within the building, filling the familiar walls with warmth as children created art and families came together. Each interaction healed pieces of his spirit, reconnecting him with the passion he thought he had lost. One evening, surrounded by laughter, Daniel found himself sitting with a group of children drawing colorful murals on the walls. Their excitement was contagious, and with each smile he felt the shadows of despair fading away. It was a moment of pure joy, illuminating the depth of connection shared within those walls. "Look, Daniel," one child exclaimed, holding up a painting filled with vibrant colors. He marveled at it, realizing that each brushstroke represented not just art but hope, a symbol of community flourishing again. Daniel said, pride swelling within him. As the night unfolded, Daniel watched the children play, their laughter ringing like a melody. In their joy, he felt a renewed sense of purpose blossoming. This was where he belonged, in the heart of a community that was not just a past but a shared future. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, yet the warmth never waned. The building stood tall, a living testament to resilience and connection, echoing with memories of laughter and togetherness. Daniel had reclaimed his spirit, finding strength in supporting others. A flood of emotions washed over him. This wasn't just a name, it symbolized growth, healing, and a community united. He reflected on the journey he had taken, the struggles, the misgivings, but ultimately the triumph of self-discovery. He had transformed from a figure standing in the shadows to a vital thread in the fabric of a vibrant community. The gratitude swelled within him as he walked home, knowing now that his name on that building didn't just represent a past life. It was a promise of renewed possibilities, of helping others see their potential just as he had found his. Each step resonated with purpose, a melody of belonging guiding him home, a home filled with laughter, connection, and the warmth of hope. Daniel had emerged from the darkness, ready to embrace whatever the future held. He stood tall, proud to be part of a community, part of a legacy that would continue to shine bright. He stood in the back, heart hammering against his chest as the crowd erupted with excitement. It was the grand unveiling of the community center, a place that had once brimmed with laughter and connection, a haven he had poured his heart into. Yet here he was, feeling like a ghost, watching from the shadows, lost in a swirl of nostalgia and doubt. The air was electric with anticipation, bright balloons bobbing against the blue sky, children laughing, families mingling. But Daniel felt a heaviness in his chest, a sense that he no longer belonged in this vibrant tapestry of life. He could see his neighbors and friends all gathered to celebrate, but he was somehow sealed off from their joy. As the mayor stepped up to the podium, his voice booming through the speaker, Daniel forced himself to focus. "Today we celebrate not just a building, but a heart." The crowd cheered, applause rising like the sun breaking through clouds. Daniel took a shaky breath, memories flooding in. He thought about the countless hours he had spent here, organizing events, mentoring children, and dreaming big dreams. This community center was a part of him, yet today felt like a monument to his failures. He was no longer the passionate dreamer, he was just a faded version of himself, lost and unsure. 3-2. The mayor's countdown echoed through the air, and Daniel felt his heart skip. As the curtain fell away, revealing the center's sign, a wave of gasps swept through the audience. Daniel squinted, feeling time slow. His breath caught. Was it really his name? A sense of disbelief washed over him, closely followed by a swell of anxiety. This can't be happening, he thought. The crowd erupted into cheers, but it felt like a distant roar. "I don't deserve this," he muttered under his breath, struggling to comprehend how they could celebrate him when he felt so unworthy. Echoes of self-doubt began to claw at him, pulling him deeper into the shadows. "Daniel," a voice cut through his introspection. It was Lucy, his childhood friend. Her infectious enthusiasm felt like a light in his darkening thoughts. "You've got to join us." As she waved him over, he felt torn. Did he really belong in the spotlight? Maybe later, he mumbled, retreating even deeper into his shell. He felt as though he were slipping through the cracks of the celebration, an outsider in his own story. Seeing him hesitate, Lucy's smile faltered for just a moment. "You can't hide forever," she insisted, urgency lacing her voice. Daniel could only shake his head, swallowed by his uncertainties. "I've done nothing," he whispered to himself, even as the crowd continued to celebrate. Each cheer felt like another reminder of his failures, each applause a reminder of the man he once was and could no longer be. The mayor continued, chatting about how vibrant the community center would be for future generations, and the crowd rallied behind him, their excitement tangible. He declared, his voice ringing with pride. Daniel felt the weight of every eye in the room turn toward him. No, he thought, panic rising. He could feel the walls closing in, every whisper of doubt tightening around him. But Lucy stepped closer, determination in her eyes. "You're still Daniel Thompson, the same guy who made a difference." The anxious knot in his stomach twisted tighter. He was terrified of stepping forward. What could he say? What was left to say after everything he had lost? Just then, the mayor waved him over again. "Come on, Daniel," the crowd began chanting his name. The sound swelled, a palpable energy pushing him toward the stage. He hesitated at the edge, feeling the weight of the moment. But a flicker of something caught fire within him, igniting the passion that had dimmed for so long. Could it be possible that he could take this chance? He truly share what was in his heart. Taking a deep breath, he climbed the steps, his heart racing with every stride. The cheers echoed around him, a tidal wave of support washing over him. As he reached the microphone, he finally felt the spark of courage. "Hi everyone," he began, his voice shaky but sincere. The crowd leaned in, eager for his words. Daniel looked into their faces, the familiar, supportive faces, and felt a rush of warmth surge through him. "I can't believe I'm up here right now." The crowd murmured, and he saw nods of understanding. "Over the past year, I've been lost, like I didn't have a place in this world. I forgot what it meant to belong," he confessed, vulnerability spilling out, and he could feel the silence deepen around him. "But seeing you all here today, celebrating what we've built together." He paused, taking a steadying breath, the moment crystallizing in time. "This community means everything to me." The crowd erupted in applause again, and Daniel felt a surge of energy, as if they were lifting him higher. "Let's promise to make this place a beacon of hope, creativity, and joy," he continued, his heart pounding with each word. The cheers grew louder, echoing off the walls of the community center, enveloping him like a warm embrace. For the first time in what felt like ages, he felt alive, and perhaps he could reclaim the person he had once been. As he stepped down from the stage, Lucy beamed at him. "That was incredible. I can't believe I said all that," Daniel replied, the weight of relief washing over him. "I really mean it, though." Weeks passed in a flurry of activity, the community center coming alive with laughter, art, and creativity. Daniel found himself organizing workshops, engaging with children, reconnecting with families. Each encounter filled him with a sense of purpose, reigniting passions he thought had long since flickered out. He stood at the front of the room one evening, surrounded by children with paintbrushes in hand, their enthusiasm infectious. He asked, eyes gleaming with motivation. The children's eager voices chimed in, ideas spilling out like magic. Suddenly he felt a sense of belonging wash over him, the shadows of doubt fading as laughter filled the air. This place was a part of him, and he was a part of it again. One crisp afternoon, Daniel stepped outside, feeling the sun warm his skin. He watched as families gathered for a community picnic, filling the center's grounds with joy. The laughter of children echoed in his ears, a soothing melody that reminded him of simpler days. But as he watched, a flicker of uncertainty snaked back into his mind. He wondered, the fear creeping up again. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Daniel felt conflicted. Could he truly continue to contribute? Doubts churned in his stomach, mixing with the joy he had rediscovered. That evening, as he left the center, he caught sight of the sign once more. He paused, drawing closer, tracing the letters with his fingers. Something inside him stirred, a mixture of pride and fear. Just then, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw Lucy approaching. "Hey, I saw you outside." Daniel hesitated, torn between the exhilaration of success and the shadows of his insecurities. "I don't know, what if this is just a temporary fix?" Lucy stepped closer, her expression serious. "Daniel, everyone feels uncertain sometimes, but what you've created here, it's real." His heart raced at her words, but deep down he could feel anxiety bubbling just beneath the surface. And what if I'm not enough? Before Lucy could reply, a sudden scream pierced the air, cutting through their conversation like a knife. Daniel's heart dropped in his chest. He thought, knowing something was wrong. They rushed toward the sound, adrenaline kicking in as they navigated the bustling crowd. Just ahead, they spotted a group of children gathered around, their faces contorted in fear. In the center of the group stood a boy, clutching his arm, tears streaming down his face. "Help!" a girl cried out, panic rising in her voice. Daniel rushed forward, pushing through the throng, Lucy close at his side. Time slowed, every heartbeat felt heavy as they neared the scene. Daniel could see the boy trying to hide his pain, a scrape that looked more severe than he had anticipated. As he reached the boy, Daniel's heart raced. He asked, kneeling down to meet the boy's gaze. "I fell off the swing," the boy whimpered, his voice trembling. Daniel carefully examined the scraped skin, frustration turning to concern. But as he focused on the injury, he felt a sudden wave of fear wash over him. What if he couldn't help? What if he let him down just like he feared would happen with everyone else? Just then, the world around him blurred, and for a split second, doubt gripped his heart, a panicked whisper creeping into his mind. "You aren't enough." But then he looked at the boy's tear-streaked face, and his instincts kicked in. "It's going to be okay," he said, steadying his voice as he reached out. Lucy rushed to grab supplies from the first aid kit as Daniel focused on calming the boy, assuring him everything would be all right. he said, feeling the weight of responsibility but also the glimmer of purpose reigniting in his heart. "You can do this," a voice inside him urged as he tightened the bandage, feeling the boy relax under his steady hands. Daniel remembered the people who had supported him, the community that had lifted him when he felt defeated. After a few moments, the boy managed a small smile, his voice soft. That's when it hit him, the cycle of hope. He had stepped into this community when he felt lost, and now he was here for someone else in need. "You're welcome," Daniel replied, feeling the warmth of reassurance blanket him like a cozy embrace. As the initial moment of fear faded, he stood tall, feeling renewed purpose pulse within him. Just then, another child nearby shouted, "Look, it's Daniel." His heart swelled, memories of doubt vanishing as he realized he was not just a name on a building, he had become a lifeline in the lives of those around him. But just as he was about to revel in that revelation, a shadow of uncertainty flickered across his mind. Could he really sustain this momentum, this connection? Could he help others without losing sight of himself again? And as these questions hung heavy in the sultry evening air, he felt the crowd around him pulse with life, laughter filling the void. There in the heart of it all, Daniel stood at the precipice of an even greater journey, a path filled with potential, but overshadowed by the fear of failing again. With the sun setting behind the horizon, a pivotal moment loomed ahead. As he turned to face the community that had embraced him, Daniel understood this was just the beginning. Would he rise to meet the challenges ahead, or would the whispers of doubt pull him back into the shadows? The answers awaited him, lying just beyond the horizon, ready to unfold like the chapters of a story yet to be written.